Welcome to Under the Shell, presented by Testudo Times. I'm Brendan Weissel.
And Jane.
Michael House.
Under the Shell is pleased to have on six-year wide receiver and Maryland's leading receiver from last year, heading into his final season in College Park, wide receiver Jeshaun Jones. Jeshaun, thanks for taking the time to hop on with us.
I appreciate you guys for having me.
Well, we just want to start, football's back, College Park, ready to go. Obviously, this is probably Maryland's highest expectations for a season in a long time. You guys do start out with some, let's just call them lighter competition load. For a receiver in terms of week one, when you're not really going up against the Big Ten caliber corners that you see, like guys like Devin Witherspoon. I know you didn't play him last year, but any of Ohio State's guys, Michigan guys, it's a different level of competition. What do you work on, in terms of in the game? And then what did you see from the offense against Towson?
I don't really take a different approach when it comes to the competition. I feel like I treat everyone the same going into each week. I go up based off what I see on film, and I really just go and try to better my game week in and week out. That's my goal, is to figure out things I didn't do well the week before. I kind of just continue to work on those things throughout the week and hopefully better them in the game on Saturdays. But it definitely and Locks is huge on that, is being just treating everyone the same and preparing for every opponent as if it's the Big Ten championship, So that's kind of how I approach each day in each week that we go into.
This team has progressed from where you first started to now, year 6. What's been the biggest change in terms of program building that you've seen Coach Loxley take? What did you not like when you got in here? And then what have you seen now to where you're like, damn, that was a huge, huge jump from what we've done, whether it's, off-season, practice, game prep, all that type of stuff?
It's hard to say because I committed to Coach Durkin in 2018, and that was who I was with my first year. So it's kind of hard to say, but I feel like the biggest change I've seen is just him bringing the team together. And I feel like that's what he's preached this whole time, is like family, family, family. And I feel like we finally, not to say before that we weren't there, but I feel like now we're actually there and we gel, and the camaraderie we have on the team is amazing. I feel like literally this is a brotherhood, and I don't know if I could say that before or I don't think I would be as confident in saying that before, but I feel like now we're finally there and we've taken those steps that he's wanted and kind of just followed his blueprint and like I said, followed the footsteps that he wanted us to, and I feel like we're kind of where we need to be at this time.
Kind of going back to that freshman season, when you're a freshman and you're in your first collegiate season and there's so much turmoil around the program, what is that like as you try to navigate college life and college athletics as a whole?
To be honest, I think it worked out that I was a freshman when all that happened, because I just was kind of here. I just was going with the flow, kind of following the older guys. I just kind of did what I was supposed to. I did what I was asked. I didn't really question too much. I didn't look too deep into things. It was a really tragic situation, and I didn't know really how or what to do. So I really remember just talking to my mom a lot, and a lot of the older guys that helped kind of recruit me and get me to Maryland. And whatever it took to do that and continue to keep us going as a team, that's kind of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be a part of. Because I know that's what Jordan wanted, that's kind of what his family wanted, and things like that. So that's kind of why I'm glad I wasn't older, because I didn't know that much. I kind of just came in and it happened, and I just, like I said, went with the flow. You
mentioned some of those older guys kind of recruiting you, and obviously current state of college football with a lot more transfer portal stuff, and you now been at Maryland for 6 years. How much of that really goes on with obviously coaches are recruiting players, but how much is it really players that are on the team trying to also recruit and get players to join the team?
I think that's big, especially now with all of the transfer portal and all that things. Like, we all have friends that play college ball, and I mean, it doesn't hurt for me to tell a guy like, hey, I think you come do this here. I think you can help us out, or the coaches can't do that, but I definitely have I have had people reach out to me, or I reached out to those that I know, like Jaquan Shepard. We talked before he ended up coming here. Because I know I played 7-on-7 with him, and I've known him for a while. And we talked when he was thinking about coming here, and just things like that. I don't know. I think it's big now, especially with the transfer portal, because it opens a lot of things up. There's time frames that guys can leave and do different things within that. So think it's a lot bigger now than it was before. But I know that was big in my process, is that I wanted to go somewhere where I felt like I fit in with the people and with the team that was already there. I didn't want to come in and just be like fresh and new. Like I visited here like 4 or 5 times before I actually committed. So I like before coming here, I kind of felt like I kind of knew a lot of people, and I was almost a part of the family before I actually got here.
All right, Jeshaun, it's been like a couple months now. Well, even a month. I gotta ask, what happened what went down this off season? It took a long time for you to announce your return. All of Maryland was sitting, kind of like, what is going on? Was it transfer stuff? Was it NFL stuff? Take me through the process of why the announcement came so late, even though it was a sick announcement on Terpstra, I will say.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it. I don't just more so figuring things out with my mom, my family, and making sure my situation was right and gonna continue to be right. That's the biggest thing. Just making sure it was the right idea to stay in school and stay here. And I feel like with Leah staying in the team that we have coming back, like it was kind of almost a no-brainer to this probably be the best fit. Just being that I know the offense, I know the guys. I feel like I helped build this and get us kind of to where we are, and that's like a huge thanks to Coach Locke for keeping me, because the scholarships are yearly. I don't know if people know that, but he could have told me to leave a couple of years ago. But it's just a huge thanks to him, and this team is kind of what I didn't want to leave. To be honest, is the team. That's really what kept me here. Those guys are my brothers, and I love each and every one of them. Just to get to go in and work with those guys day in and day out was huge, and I didn't think I could really see myself doing that somewhere else and having the same fun and the same brotherhood that I had here.
So was it more the transfer portal then, like early on, that you kind of were like seeing if maybe you dip in or not?
I feel like early on it was more so, should I leave or come back to school? And then of course the transfer portal option is there, but I didn't really like entertain any other schools. Like I had the conversation, and I feel like that I would be wrong not to. Right. But I definitely didn't. I definitely talked about it, and it was a conversation, but it didn't really get past that. I don't know. To answer your question, I don't know why it took so long. I probably could have posted it a couple months prior to when I posted it. But just to make sure everything was set and everybody was good. I don't know. It didn't really bother me that much. I don't know. I feel bad now that you say that people were waiting. The media people were on me a little bit about it, but. Nah. I wasn't in really any rush, It just I kind of want to make sure I was making the right decision, and once I felt that, I did. So I've been new. Like I wouldn't have went through all that offseason stuff here if I wasn't gonna stay. I would be crazy to leave.
Your quarterback was talking about how he got a bag thrown at him a little bit by an unnamed school. Did you know about that? Did something similar happen to that with you? Because the transfer portal, your coach talked about it's like the wild, wild west. You said you had those conversations. Was there anything like that in terms of NIL talks that you had similar to Leah?
I've heard, I hear numbers, but I never really talked to a school and sat down and like really discussed that or know, but I definitely knew about his situation. And I thought that was wild. That's a lot of money. But that just shows like kind of like the brotherhood and the family, like the atmosphere and the things like we're kind of building here. Why he turned it down. And if you ask him, he'll tell you that like he wanted to be here. And that's kind of my biggest thing too. Like, of course I've heard different numbers and whatnot thrown at me, but not what he got, not even near, not even a quarter. But I never really looked too deep into it because my dream is to get to the NFL and that's my goal, So like, yeah, the money is cool on the front end, but I'm more so trying to put myself in a position to take care of my family later on in life down the line.
So you're back for your 6th season, and you graduated in 2020. So what is your classes like? What classes are you taking now? Is your course load the same as it used to be? And kind of what is it like in the midst of a football season when you're having to balance, your academic life and your athletic life at the same time?
It's honestly, I don't know how to. Well, in 2020, I got my undergrad. In 2021, I got my first master's, and I'm getting another master's now. And both programs are online, so it's not terrible. But it's more so Zooms and things like that I'm gonna have to be a part of, and like I haven't had to go to class in a while, like on campus. thankfully. But I have been taking classes online, and I'm taking 3 classes, I believe. Yeah, 3 classes that I'm in, and only really need one of them, which is kind of frustrating because I only need 1 class that I'm taking out of the 3. So I don't know. This is kind of how I wanted it the whole time, is just to more so focus on football with only having like 1 class that I really need to focus on. So I don't know. It's not. I'm not gonna say it's easy, because being a student athlete is not easy at all. But it's definitely not the hardest that it's ever been.
Is there a reason you're taking and have for a while now taking all the online classes? Just a preference, or like don't like to be seen in the classes? Is there a reason for that?
Oh no, that's just how the program that I decided to join. That's just how they offer it. It's all offered online. There's not really any in-person classes for it, so that's why it's online. I'm not that popular. I can go to class.
So let me ask you, I think, was it your first game against Texas? Like, that was your true freshman season, right?
Yes, sir.
So you go, what, passing, rushing, receiving, tutty, all in one game. I read somewhere that you didn't even realize it because you were just sitting there. Can you take us through that moment, like that game? Like, do you have any funny stories or memories from that spot? And then why have we not seen a Jeshaun Jones throwback screen toss down the field yet? I got to see the arm. You know what I mean?
Just where when I really realized what I did and what was going on was I was on the sideline with one of another receiver. He was out due to injury, and he had his Apple Watch on the sideline, and we were sitting we were talking like just throughout the game. And I was standing next to him, and he his Apple Watch notification went up, and he tapped me and showed me his Apple Watch, and it was the ESPN headline of Jeshaun Jones scored a touchdown in 3 different ways, rushing, passing, and receiving. And I was like, whoa, that's when it hit me. I was like, I didn't realize I didn't realize it was that big of a deal. I was just playing. I knew that's a good game. I'm not going to sit here and act I didn't think that was a good game, but I didn't realize it was going to be all over. I didn't think it would be on ESPN. But the reason why, I don't know. I've been asking for him to throw passes again. I think I can do it. I think I'm good at it. Hopefully we see one soon. I don't know. But I would like to throw another one before I'm done with college.
I've got to run up the score this week just so that Coach Locks can throw you in there. A little wildcat quarterback action. So then, was that in the game plan all week to get you them touches? Because you're a true freshman. Those are your I read it was your first 3 touches. Was that what was the practice lead up to that? Were you scared?
What's crazy is it just depended on the pass came. It just depended on what hash we ended up getting the ball on. And if it was an opposite hash, Brian Cobbs would have got it because he's a lefty. So me and him had been going back and forth, running the play all week. He was left-handed, so he would throw one on the right hash, going left, and I would throw it on the left hash when we were going right. And it happened. It just and what's crazy, the handoff, those are all read. That was a read play. That was if the quarterback seen we had numbers on that side that he would hand it off. If not, he would have gave it to the running back. It just happened that he thought we had numbers, so he handed it off to me for that one. And then, like I said, the pass it just happened to be that we're on the right, the left house instead of the right, because if it would have been on the right house, it should have been Brian Cobbs that got it. And I don't know, I was just thankful. I couldn't do anything but thank God for that one. It was huge. It was amazing. I was shocked. I shocked myself, honestly.
Another game that happened that freshman year was the overtime Ohio State-Maryland game with that 2-point conversion that you were involved in. Do you still think about that game? Was there any lessons you learned as a freshman to be involved in such a big moment like that against a high watched opponent?
Yeah, definitely. That game still kind of haunts me, even though it was 5-6 years ago. Just because we were so close, and being close doesn't do anything. And it just being that we were right there, and they were the team that they were, and the people that they had on that team at the time was just kind of crazy to be playing against, and being in that game as a true freshman was huge. And I learned a lot, honestly, from our experience, just knowing that at Maryland we can go out there and compete any given Saturday with anybody. And that was the biggest thing that I seen, because before I think the mindset going into those games was kind of down, and after that it kind of showed me we can do it, and I think it showed everybody else that we can hang with those guys. And it was big. I wish we would have came out with that win. That would have been an unforgettable moment.
I was looking back at some of your tapes from high school and early in your career, obviously talking about the freshman season and the Texas and Ohio State game. And, obviously you have the ACL injury a little bit later in your career. Do you think your game has changed at all since the ACL injury, or do you think it's kind of stayed the same? Have you noticed any differences?
I don't think my game has changed at all. I mean, I think it'd be better for you to tell me if you watch. And I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I feel like I played pretty much the same as I did before. I feel like I came back stronger. So I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think my game has changed, but people may say different.
What was like the adjustment period, when you're coming back from an ACL as a receiver? There's got to be some like not loss, but some wariness of making, like, because you guys play so fast at such an, cut intense speed that there's got to be some wariness potentially about.
100%. I'm not gonna act like I wasn't like nervous coming back or like didn't really trust myself coming back at first. So I had learned this with my first ACL is that like once they clear you and tell you you're once they clear you and tell you you're good, that you're good and you're healthy, like you're good to go, or they wouldn't clear you to get out there. I definitely used to be a little nervous to like make certain cuts and certain movements just because like of the injury and how I did it. So yeah, there definitely wasn't a definite period, but I had to like understand that once I was clear that I was good to go and ready to play ball. But once I figured that out, I was fine. I felt like.
With the success that this program keeps building upon, the attendance has gone up in recent years. But at the same time, I see fans, especially students, they're leaving games at halftimes, not staying for the full game. Can you kind of talk about the importance of fans staying and being fourth quarter Terps, how important that is for you guys, and kind of pitch to students why they should stay the full game?
And I think it's super important. We feed off their energy. Like this weekend was probably the best home opener I've been a part of since our home opener at FedEx. Actually, the West Virginia game was pretty packed too.
It's tight.
But for us to be playing Towson, I feel like that was a huge crowd, and it definitely surprised me to that they brought out that many fans and that so many Terp fans came out. Like it was huge, and I don't know how else to stress it enough. Like we feed off of that energy, like we love it. All the guys were talking about it actually, like going into it. Like we're not going into it, but like going out there and seeing the crowd, it was like wow, like they actually came out and supported. Like they're actually coming to support us. Like this is big, and especially with the guys that have been around for a while, that were there when there wasn't that much support. And I think it's huge. I think, like I said, I don't know how else to say it. We feed off that energy, especially in the second half. We need that sometimes. But I get like why sometimes they do leave, because if it's not like, if we're winning, I think, and we're winning by a substantial amount, I feel like they're ready to go get the bench or something. So I don't blame them. I'm not mad at them. But I know those games where we're down or that are tight games, I think it's huge that they stay and like I said, we feed off that energy. I love it. I love celebrating with the fans and love for them to be there after the game and stuff like that. Like I think it's huge.
So quarterbacks, wide receivers, y'all got a very cool relationship. It's a very up and down type of thing because, you guys play such a interconnecting role with each other. What's the happiest you've ever been with Talia? And then the most frustrated or like, man, like throw up your hands in the air like Diggs did at Allen type thing that you've ever been with Leah?
Oh, man, I don't – that's tough. That's a good one. I don't know. I feel like me and Leah more so – I've gotten frustrated at Leah more so in practice than I'll have in the game. In the game, I kind of let him do his thing because I know –
What about practice? I got to hear practice.
Like there's been times where like we reran reps, like where the first time I was a step too short or a yard too short, and the next play like I come back, like we run it back because I messed up, and then we go back and he throws it exactly where I was the rep before, and things like that happen, and I come out like I kind of throw my hands up and I'm like, come on, like what? We just ran it back to adjust it, and like you're throwing it right where I just was. He kind of does the same thing to me, like. Well, if you'd have been right the first time, we wouldn't have to rerun it, So I don't know. It's almost petty stuff, really, with me and him more so. Like, and I think that's just because he wants me to be on top of my details, and as the quarterback and the leader he is, like it's frustrating to him when I'm not. So I think it's a good thing. It's definitely like I think it's needed, and I'm glad that I have that relationship with him to where like if I don't feel right about something, I can go to him, and whether I'm frustrated or not, like he's gonna take it out, like he's gonna take it in a good way, and kind of know that like I'm only saying this to get us better, and I know that when he's saying something 9 times out of 10 is to get us better as well. I'd say a good moment, like a super happy moment that we've had. I say when he found me on that scramble drill against Ohio State last year for the touchdown. That was big. That was huge because of the way the play was ran and him getting the pressure he was and still finding me with all those people in his face and other receivers and offensive players in that part of the end zone for him to squeeze that ball in there. It was great. It was an amazing throw and play by him.
Oh, that was a dope play for everybody. But we got our rapid fire segment now, which is basically, we talk about how everybody, all of our guests we have, we do, quick answers, quick questions. So I kind of want to get started with this. So you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
Oops.
Worst locker room you've been in? Opposing locker room.
Worst opposing locker room? Iowa.
Iowa. Okay. Loudest atmosphere you've ever played in?
Ooh, I'd say Michigan 2018 or Iowa 2018.
What about in terms of your favorite post-game snack?
I like when we get Raising Cane's when we go down south.
Ooh, Raising Cane's. If you had to pick one NFL stadium or team to play for, obviously you play for all of them, we know. Which one would you choose?
The Green Bay Packers with Aaron Rodgers.
Wow, in the cold, Jeshaun?
Yes.
I'm a Lions fan, so I take offense to that.
My bad.
In terms of what would be your favorite route to run?
Ooh. I'd say an option route because you can't lose. You just go the opposite way of that guy, so you can't lose. You shouldn't.
What's the weirdest fan interaction?
Right when NIL started, a guy offered me he asked me he had like printed out pictures of me and had me like wanted me to sign them, and I was like doing the right thing. I feel like by signing them, and my mom came up and like stopped me and was like, "No, you have to pay for these now, sir." And I just was so uncomfortable. I remember that, like looking at her like, "Are you serious right now?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'm serious." And I was like, "Okay." So I let her handle it from there. I don't know what else happened. I kind of walked away.
Yeah, it seems like a good move. NIL is a crazy landscape. Last question before we wrap up. Script jerseys are back. Favorite color?
Ooh. I can't really tell y'all that because y'all haven't seen them yet.
Okay, fair. Keep us waiting. Keep the fans waiting. Well, Jeshaun, that's all we got for you. Thank you very much for hopping on with us. We appreciate it, and we'll be watching. So good luck the rest of the season. Thank you.
Well, that wraps up Jeshaun Jones' interview, and Jeshaun obviously had a big week against Towson guys, and it wasn't just him who had a good week against the Tigers because Maryland's offense, at least the starters, had themselves a nice day. The Terps dominated from start to finish. It seemed as if kind of once the second half hit, they were playing keep away. It felt like, just kind of trying to stall and run timeout, put the starters in bubble wrap. But, these type of games, it's hard to take much away from it. But Mike, what do you see as kind of the main takeaway from the first game of the football season, which is back?
Yeah, so they lost some weekends over the offseason, like Rakim Jarrett and Dante Demas, but it really didn't look like that against Towson. Jeshaun Jones and Corey Dyches, those are the two names that come to mind when I think about those weapons, especially Dyches. He was one of my picks for MVP last week. He finished the day with 108 receiving yards, and it looks like he's going to be a big part of this new Gaddis offense. Ty Felton also, he had a massive 74-yard touchdown that he dropped, so there are still points left on the field on Saturday. And then you add in the Hemby-Littleton 1-2 punch in a way that Talia played on Saturday. This Terps offense, it's going to do some damage once the Big Ten season hits them.
Yeah, that game definitely got me excited for watching, Maryland football in the future, in the upcoming season. But I think it's really hard to know how much to take away from that. Playing a team that is not going to face that many good opponents this year, playing a team that is just not as good as the Maryland team. And the big thing that I noticed, kind of the odd takeaway that I had at least, was no turnovers at all in that game. You look at it, a game with a team that's usually way overmatched, you think that there's going to be a lot of turnovers. And I kept looking to the sidelines. I was like, I feel like we're going to have Maryland's going to force a turnover here. And then it just never happened.
Yeah, I mean, it was their job to execute. And like you said, Towson, probably not the hardest opponent they're going to play this year. But at the same time, it's their job to execute. And they did just that. No turnovers, scored over 30 points. They did their job.
I think the thing to talk about with that is how much pressure they were able to get on Towson's offense. I mean, it felt like no sacks on the day or limited sacks on the day, but the generic pressure that they were able to generate, they weren't even sending that many blitzes. But DC Brian Williams, I mean, he kind of looks like a huge upgrade from what the Terps have had in the past. He's really gotten creative with, how he wants to run his defense, way less man than what the Terps have played in the past. And I think that the one thing you can really point to is just this team is starting to slowly find homegrown talent. Bo Brady had another big day. Jeshaun Barnum was quiet, but both corners looked excellent. Tarheeb still had a good day. So I think that this team is, there's not as much heralded names as last year on the defensive side. But I think that the defense overall really impressed me, even against an FCS team. I think those were the big positives. But Brendan, I think one negative you can really take away from this game, or at least something that better get better soon, terrible grammar, is the offensive line. I mean, Talia was pressured, it felt like, way more than you should be against the FCS school. And if he's going to have to run for his life again against Towson, not boding well for late games against better pass rushers.
Yeah, I think it definitely scares Maryland fans a little bit. Last year, late in the season with Talia kind of, having that knee injury and Billy Edwards having to come in for some games, and, the Northwestern game, Maryland ended up winning, but definitely wasn't the way, Maryland fans really wanted it to go. And I think, having the best running back in the conference, or whatever you want to say about that, doesn't go that far if the offensive line can't produce. You can have an incredible running back, but at the end of the day, I think you'd rather have a really, really good offensive line and a mediocre running back. And so I agree that, we're going to have to see what the offensive line ends up being. I know, it's kind of like 8 guys kind of share the snaps. And so I think as the season goes on, we'll see what that looks like. But for now, we're kind of unsure. What are your thoughts on that, Mike?
Just to kind of build off of that, injuries do exist. We saw that last year. And one thing I want to point out is both backup QBs who came in, Cameron Edge and Billy Edwards, they both had completion percentages under 50%. They combined had completion percentages under 50%. Cameron Edge was 2 for 3, and then Billy Edwards was 2 for 7. So that's not the type of day you want to see from your backups against an FCS school. But it is a long season. It was the second half of a blowout, so it shouldn't be too concerning, but just something to look at.
Yeah, I want to touch on, I apologize to all Michigan fans for Brendan saying that Roman Hempe's the best running back in the Big Ten when Blake Corum exists, but I want to push back a little bit on the idea of the big backup quarterback struggling, and we don't have to get too much into it because it doesn't matter. If Talia goes down, Maryland is in for a tough season. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. Like, you lose probably the Big Ten's best quarterback. Again, sorry to Michigan fans if you think J.J. McCarthy is, but it's going to be a tough year. But I think Billy Edwards has shown enough in limited action to where I trust him if he were to go into a game to have to, complete the finish. To me, when you're only really throwing the ball on third down and you're not really showing much in terms of play action and things that Billy Edwards is good at with out-of-the-pocket stuff, it's mostly just a static game plan to kind of salt the game away. It doesn't really surprise me that his completion percentage was lower. But I think the point remains the same, that if this offensive line is not able to protect Talia eventually, it's not going to be good. So I think that's just one minor takeaway. And they'll have another chance this week, guys, because Charlotte's coming to town. Last season, the Terps went on the road, beat Charlotte pretty handedly, 56-21, in a game that wasn't that close. Maryland was pretty much wire to wire winning that one. And I think that, NBC comes to town for this week. It's primetime game, 7:30. Another game against a mediocre opponent. Brendan, what are you looking at? In these games, you almost don't want to watch for one particular thing. What are you trying to see from Maryland?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a similar game to Towson in the fact that, most Maryland fans are going into the game, hoping it's going to be a win. And so, those are games that are kind of fun to watch because like you said, you can kind of point out things. I really want to see what Talia can do. I know that it's kind of an obvious thing to say, and he's, 8,000 plus passing yards. But I think at a certain point, this offense is good. It has weapons, but I want to see, the defense takes a little bit of a step up. How does Talia look this year with the weapons he knows pretty well, but also different offensive coordinator? I think the more looks we can get at this offense will give us a better idea of how they're going to look in Big Ten play.
I kind of want to see how this defense performs. Kind of touched on it, Sam, the secondary. Bo Braid had a big day against Towson. Another name you didn't bring up, Jaquan Shepard, new cornerback from Cincinnati. He was targeted 5 times, only gave up 1 completion for 5 yards. So I want to continue to see how that secondary continues to play in this new look defense.
Yeah, and I would agree with both of you. But a guy I want to see in particular, Ty Felton. You talked about it, Mike. He had a 74-yard drop touchdown. Has struggled with drops in the past, but coaches continue to rave about him as, a potential difference maker. Eventually, you got to hold on to the football. And I'd like to see him, kind of take that next step, build up some confidence because his speed is dynamic. He's a good route runner. I'd like to see him start to really put it together because Octavian Smith is coming fast. He was, I think, one of the higher snapping receivers last weekend. So he continues to impress, and Maryland should pull away for an easy win, and should be a good atmosphere in College Park, 7:30 NBC.
Maryland put up 56 points, like you said, in last year's game against Charlotte. 56 points, a lot of points. I know there's been a lot of talk in the last week in the college football community about the new clock rules and teams scoring less points. Maryland was tied for the highest scoring team in the first week. What are your guys' thoughts on that and kind of what people have been saying about the new rules for the clock?
I like it.
I mean, everybody has to play with it. So if the team or player is complaining about it, everybody's dealing with the same rule.
I think college football has too many stoppages. That's my opinion. So I like it. The only thing that sucks is it makes it feel more like the NFL, and I kind of like keeping the two a little separate. But I think it's a good rule overall. Keeps games closer, I think, too. Like, you didn't see as many 75-2 or 75-7 blowouts. Games were obviously tighter, like you said, B. So overall, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, some of that type of stuff comes into play when we do our picks at the end of the show, so stay tuned for that. But for now, from one Maryland Towson match, the next, Sam, you were out there for women's soccer. What'd you say?
Well, yeah, the Lady Terps, just like the football Terps, got on the board, their first win of the season. Finally able to pull through. And, as much as the heat was making me want to just kind of leave the field, they managed to hold on better than I did because, the first half, they had a ton of opportunities. Really, really good play from Kennedy Bell, who's a freshman. And I know someone that Coach Megan Ryan Nemser, who's a friend of the pod, really loves. Talked about how she can't wait till she's a senior. I mean, she was dominating, looked like all Big Ten type of player, has looked like that so far. And she just made a beautiful run at the goal. It was the second half. And she connected off a really beautiful pass to Ava Morales, who's a sophomore, just kind of, tapped it in past the keeper, put him up 1-0. And then they just kind of went into defense mode. Towson never really threatened past that point. And so I think it's good to build confidence. To be honest, if you're looking for a great season, I would have liked to have seen a more dominating win. Towson isn't, a great team, and Maryland was kind of in a dead knot. But I also want to be fair and give some credence. They had a lot of missed opportunities that, like, 2 balls hit the post, I think. 1 just glanced over the net. So I think in reality, soccer's a very fickle game. It's very, inches can change how it ends. So in reality, it probably could have been 4-3-0. But I would have liked to have seen a little more domination.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about dominating wins, if there's ever a time to get a dominating win, it's going to be on Thursday. Maryland faces off against George Mason. And George Mason so far this year is 0-6, and they have been outscored 0-21. So that's a team they're going to get a dominating win against.
Yeah, if Maryland doesn't win by at least 2 or 3 goals, that's a serious sign for concern.
I mean, it's truly a great game to build your confidence up because, you have a team coming in who has not scored a goal yet and has let up at least 3 goals in every game. It's a game where, a team that like Maryland, who has had so many issues with ties in the past, breakthrough, maybe you get a 3-0, 4-0 victory. It gives you confidence. It gets some of those people who maybe haven't scored a goal in a Maryland jersey to do that. Yeah, definitely a positive game, hopefully.
Yeah, Maryland. Agree, Brendan. I think that's what Nemser would want. I think she probably wants something in the 3 to 4 goal differential. And as we kind of move past the winners of the weekend, we have the losers, the field hockey team. Tough loss. Mike, I know you paid attention to their game against Duke. What'd you see from Missy Maharg's squad?
Yeah, so the field hockey team, they suffered their first loss of the season, falling 2-1 to an old ACC rival, number 20 Duke, Friday at home. They did bounce back. They defeated number 17 Boston College 1-0 in overtime Sunday, and they're 4-1. But it is a little concerning because we're starting to see the same trends from last season, where they kind of struggle against ranked opponents offensively. They opened the season on a tear. They were averaging over 4 goals a game in their first 3 unranked games, but now they could only muster 3 goals this past weekend in their 2 ranked games. It's what bit them in the foot last year at the end of the season, so they'll hope to figure it out, but you don't like to see that goal differential when you're playing an unranked team, and then when you play a ranked team, it goes down to like 1 or 2 goals a game. They don't want to see that, so it is a little concerning.
You think that this is kind of a trend that can continue on to this season, or you think this is just kind of a quip in a long year? Because you don't want to overreact too much to early season games, but like you talked about last year against the league competition, weren't able to pull through against Northwestern, lost to other couple games. If you want to get back to the top of the mountain, those are the teams you got to beat.
They got to hope that this is just a short little thing and they can fix it over the season. And they have the tools to do that. Again, Hope Rose, the leading goal scorer from last year, is back for her junior season. So if there's anybody and a single leader on this team who can help kind of will them and help this offense kind of rejuvenate itself, it would be her. She is a goal-scoring machine. So you got to hope that those tools that they have can kind of fix this trend going on.
Yeah, and that's something that, Missy Maharg is going to have to lock in, especially if, you're looking at a more challenging conference season, because the Big Ten is always good. And another Big Ten league that is always strong, and it always seems to maybe do the opposite to the Terps and what the field hockey team does, is the volleyball squad. Big Ten's obviously loaded in volleyball. Nebraska, I just want to say that was pretty incredible. I don't know if you guys saw, but the packed out Lincoln Memorial Stadium, I really like that, to like bring that attention to such an elite program. And women's sports especially, I think sometimes can get a bad rap that, people don't want to watch. Clearly people will watch if you put on a good product and you market well and things like that. Nebraska obviously also has a historically elite volleyball program, but I just really like to see. I thought it was cool when they did the walkout. Like a coach who's probably been there 20 years finally gets to do that. It was really, it made my heart warm.
It was truly amazing, but you know what it makes me think of is the only time SACU Stadium can get full is when Ohio State comes to town. So I do want to bring that up. Unrelated, but
a whole other question.
Now you make a good, interesting point there, Mike, and I know exactly what you're saying. But moving on to volleyball, you mentioned those ranked teams, Sam. The Big Ten currently has 6 in the top 25. Maryland, not one of them. This past weekend, I had predicted that Maryland would go 3-0. They went 2-1 with wins to Utah Valley and Old Dominion, and a loss, 3-0 loss to Navy. Kind of an odd loss to Navy, very close in each set. Had the lead in the first set, but just couldn't get any of them done. Maryland is went 9-3 last year in non-conference play. Currently 4-2 with 6 games remaining. So hopefully for Maryland fans, they can kind of keep a similar record to what they did last year. But like we talked about in the last episode, Maryland having a strong non-conference record is kind of what helps them stay afloat in some of the Big Ten kind of pads the record kind of at the end of the year. Other hits, Sam Sire approaching 1,000 kills in her career at Maryland. This upcoming weekend, Maryland has a tournament in the Xfinity Center, 2 games at the Pavilion on Friday and Saturday, and DC on Sunday, facing off against Coastal Carolina, Princeton, and Howard. All teams that finished in the same kind of ranking in last year's RPI, but I think Maryland, I'm going to predict once again, will go 2-1 this weekend.
Got to keep stacking wins in the non-conference, especially with how good the Big Ten is. So you look to see that from Adam Hughes' squad to continue to finish these weekends with winning records, because this is another rebuilding year, and they got to find a way to do it. Especially
how many more rebuilding years will Hughes get?
I mean, how many more can he? At some point, he's going to be.
At some point, Adam Hughes has got to be on the hot seat, frankly. But as
Mike will keep asking,
Coach who's not on the hot seat because they just got here.
Coldest seat in town, probably.
Yeah, coldest seat in the building. Softball made its month-long hiring search end with the official hiring of Oakland's head coach, Lauren Card. Coming over, she has led the Grizzlies to back-to-back Horizon League championships, and she's won back-to-back Coach of the Year awards. So, guys, what do you guys think of the hire? I want to hear your quick thoughts.
I don't really follow Horizon League softball too intently, but from what I've read up about her, it seems like a great hire. Get someone who knows how to win conference championships. That's exactly what Maryland needs. Someone who has that experience winning those type of games. And, it's going to be much tougher in the Big Ten, but I definitely like the hire.
I'll say this. I think it's going to be a tougher job for her to inherit than people think, because I think Coach Montgomery had this program on the rise. And then for him to abruptly leave and then have a new coach come in, it's going to be hard to do that quick transition and keep this program rising the way it was.
Yeah, I would give the hire a B. I don't think it was anything that shocked me or wowed me, like pulling an elite assistant from an SEC school. That's kind of what I thought would be like the A+ hire, get a rising assistant. But she's a young coach, up and coming. Like you said, has won conference championships, has won conference coaches. Maryland's not really a destination job for softball or baseball, as we've seen. So I wasn't too disappointed with it either, if you were a Maryland fan, is what I would say. A solid B hire, and I think Karn could do a good job. I just don't think it's going to be this year. I think this year could be a tough one. But it's a solid hire. Damon Evans did a good job there.
Yeah, Sam gives that hire a B, and I think I'm going to have to give an A to Mike House's picks this past weekend. What do we have there, Mike?
Weekend, Mr. Michael.
So to go to the picks from last weekend, your reigning champion from last year started off with a slight 3-0 week. So
picking against Alabama, I was surprised it was. That was a good job.
I'm just going to say
other record. What's the other record?
Okay. Other records, Sam Jane, 2-1, and then Brendan Weissel at a measly 1-2. So to get these picks started for this week, I'm going to continue my hot streak. First pick, I'm going to continue that hot streak by riding with the Buffaloes once again in Colorado. I buy into the hype. I buy into the Coach Prime hype. And I don't think Nebraska, the line is Colorado favored by 2.5. Nebraska struggled in their season opener and could only muster 10 points against Minnesota. Looking like a good line for me. Next one, Maryland, Charlotte over 51.5. Again, this was a super high scoring game last year, 77 combined points between the two teams. And I think Charlotte's a little better than Towson, so I think we're going to see a little more scoring from the opponent. Lastly, Stanford and USC over 69. Give me some high scoring Pac-12 football with possible back-to-back Heisman winner, Caleb Williams.
Maryland native. Good picks, Mike. I like 2 out of 3. I'll go next. I got Mississippi.
Whoa. Which one didn't you like?
Well, I'm not going to say.
Picking two overs is crazy. I think the Colorado pick is a great pick. That's all I'll say.
Thank you.
I like Mississippi State to cover -10 against Arizona. Bulldogs at home. I'm going to ride with that one. I also like Oregon to cover 6.5 against Texas Tech. I think that's kind of a weird line. I like Oregon a lot there. And then I like the Alabama-Texas over. Give me 55.5. Give me the over on that one. So those are my picks for the day.
Alabama-Texas game is the game of the weekend, in my opinion.
All right, now we got our last place picker going. Brendan,
moving into my picks, I'm going to take Maryland -24.5 to Charlotte. I think Maryland's going to have a very strong performance on offense, so I like that pick there. And then Miami, Ohio, -7 to UMass. I like picking Miami, Ohio. I like picking UMass. So when they're playing each other, I have to pick that game. And then Utah, -7 to Baylor. Those are my picks.
Good one. Good picks. Gentlemen, we'll see who gets on the board this week. Mike, if you go 6-0, I'm going to punch you. So that was the wrap-up of our picks for the week. And now we have another pick. Not necessarily in the way you think, but our terrific Terp of the week. Brendan, take it away.
All right, this week's terrific Terp is William Bill Hubble. Hubble graduated from Garden City High School as an All-American in lacrosse. That standard continued when he got onto Maryland's campus in the fall of 1948. Hubble made his presence known on defense on and off the field, and we'll get to the off-the-field part in a bit. He was an All-American defenseman in 1951 and 1952, and in that 1952 season, he won the award for the nation's best defenseman. Although this was a down period overall in Maryland lacrosse, because they hadn't really made a national final since 1943 and wouldn't do so until 3 years after Hubble, he was surely a bright spot of the team, an export they could be proud of. After graduating from Maryland in 1952, Hubble officially joined the United States Air Force a few years after his graduation and served in the Air Force until 1980, where he achieved the rank of colonel. In the Air Force, he was a part of the River Rats, a group of fighter pilots that served in Vietnam. Hubbell also commanded a fighter squadron in England and served in fighter squadrons in Japan and Germany. Hubbell is a member of the New York State Lacrosse Hall of Fame and in the Maryland Athletics Hall of Fame, where he was inducted in 1994.
You know, another veteran, I think that when you look at it, you always have to respect those guys, and especially athletic veterans, you know. But thank you again, Mr. Hubbell, for serving our country. Obviously, continue to be, you know, providing Terp excellence across the years. And that was another great episode of Under the Shell presented by Testudo Times. You know, you can follow us on Under the Shell on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you get your podcasts. And for another great episode, I'm Sam Jane. Brendan, Mike, it's football season, baby.